Welcome everyone to today's Cultivating Success webinar. We're really happy that you could join us today. Our topic is local food system businesses looking beyond COVID-19. Cultivating Success as a program is a partnership of University of Idaho Extension, the nonprofit organization Rural Roots, and the Washington State University Food Systems Program. Today's presenter is Ken Hart. Ken is an extension educator located in Lewis County, which is in north central Idaho. I'm Colette D. Phelps. I'm an area educator in community food systems, and I am located in Moscow, Idaho. I will be your facilitator today, and then in the wings is Mackenzie Lawrence, who is going to be helping with technical support. So we're all sharing a lot of bandwidth these days as we're working from home. So if at any time you are running into problems with sound becoming drawn out, a little bit scratchy, garbled, you can always type into the chat box and ask Mackenzie if that's something just you are experiencing, or maybe that is coming from Ken's side of the presentation. If it is something that you're experiencing, it could be helpful to close all the other programs running on your computer. And if you continually have problems, to go ahead and switch to the phone for your audio. There is a call-in number provided in your welcome email. If you do decide to switch to the phone to avoid feedback, go ahead and mute your computer sound. At any time, you can type questions into the Q&A box or the chat box for Ken, and there will be times that we will pause and he'll answer those questions. I did email handouts to you today, about 10:15 or 10:20, that have all the slides from today's slide deck. Those slides will also be available from the Cultivating Success website, as well as a recording of this webinar. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and invite Ken to share his and begin the presentation. Great, you're set, Ken. Let's make sure you are unmuted. You'll just need to unmute.
There.
Great. Awesome.
Good. Good morning. Thank you for being here with me today, and Colette and Mackenzie. I originally had on one of my slides, I wanted to thank the State University of New York, which houses the SBDC, Small Business Development Center in New York, University of Buffalo, and Purdue University for some of the information presented today. My name is Ken Hart, and like Colette mentioned, I'm an extension educator in north central Idaho with my offices in Lewis County. Happy Cinco de Mayo. It's the 5th of May today. My spouse greeted me with that at breakfast, and she said, if you're gonna have a margarita, today's the day to have it. So I guess that's good advice. Thanks for taking time to attend this webinar today. And thank you to Colette and Mackenzie for all the work that they do, all the work that Colette gets done in the small farms and local food system area. Just incredible. I don't know how she does it, but I'm sure Mackenzie's an important part of that. So just a little bit of my background so you know where your speaker's coming from. I don't propose to be necessarily an expert in everything talked about today, but I certainly have some background in that. I've taught extension programs in farm financial management, business success, risk management since about 1994. And I have a farm partner who's my spouse, and we've operated Lolo Breaks Farms since '84. We moved to Idaho in 1979, which I'm sure was before several of you who are listening today were born, but that's just the way it is. I also serve Moscow Food Co-op Board of Directors, and I only put that in there because it's pertinent. It's really fascinating to be part of Moscow Food Co-op anytime, but particularly right now, all that we're dealing with the COVID pandemic. So today, just expectations and what you might expect. I
I'm
tend to
just
use.
going to jump in, Ken.
Okay.
We're thinking that maybe it would be helpful if you stopped your video because your sound is a little bit strained. It goes in and out a little bit, so you might be running on a little bit low bandwidth. So if in your control bar you just stop your video, I think that will help your sound be clearer.
Stop my video.
So down,
Oh, okay. And at the bottom.
yes. So in your control bar on the
Stop
bottom to the
video.
left. Yes. Okay,
Okay, I
great.
see. Is that better? Okay. Yes,
Thanks.
this online is very challenging. I think that we have had a lot of Zoom meetings, and my wife is a pastor, and she's trying just to do church online, and we're challenged by bandwidth today. Up here, we're supposed to get an upgrade on Thursday, but we'll see if that actually happens. Anyway, back to expectations for today. I tend to use slides as a guide to discussion, not necessarily as a key source of information, an encyclopedia for you to use, but certainly you're welcome to refer to those. And my real focus today is on action for businesses, for small local food system businesses, whether they be farms or grocery, restaurants, providers, suppliers, all types of businesses, really. So really going to focus on action that a business can take in this time. It's a very difficult time, challenging time, but a time with opportunity as well. I will have, at the end, we'll talk a little bit, reference some of the programs from the government through extension, through that won't be really the main focus today. The main focus is going to be on actions for business. On this slide, you can see targeting financial performance. That's a kind of a banner I've used for an overall program for farm financial management, business planning throughout the years. And then the picture down below is a little picture of Lolo Breaks Farm. Okay, next slide then. Oh, I guess I'm controlling the slides. There we go. Okay, today's webinar topics. I like to use a 3-2-1 system. It's just a little system to get something out of a short webinar like this and to focus our attention. And it consists of 3 questions, 2 points, and then 1 action item for us to hopefully walk away from this with. And the 3 questions that I've come up with today is, will my business survive this crisis? I know in the midst of this, there's days when you just feel like overwhelmed, and that you might have that question. Another question that we might be facing is, how can I tell whether my business is performing or how it's performing in the midst of all this rapid change? And I don't think I've ever seen change so rapid in society and business and in the economy. And when change is so rapid and unprecedented, it makes it really difficult to forecast business performance because we just don't have that much to base it on. So it's important. That's an important question to consider. And then the third question is, what should I do to help my business adapt to the new normal, whatever that is? So there's a lot of pontificators on the internet telling us what the new normal might be, but we need to position our businesses to look forward to the new normal. And we can do that. We're going to talk about some ways to do that through our current business structure and business forms and analysis today. Next is 2 points that we might want to consider. The first being cash flow management, and I hope to hammer this one home. And the second one is knowing your financial and marketing numbers. Those 2 points that we hope to emphasize. And then one action it might take is starting today with a focus on the future while understanding the present status of our businesses. That's the plan for today. And let's get going. I don't know about you, but I'm having some trouble on some days really staying calm. And this little list came from the Entrepreneur magazine, and I thought it was really good and wanted to share it with you. I have some additional information with it. But the first thing to do is, especially when you're having trouble, maybe like the lady there, that might be a self-portrait, I don't know, but lavender reduces stress. When you're having trouble, just try and remember what's going right. First of all, what are you in business for? Remember what you really love about your business and what you really care about, what your values are. A strategic plan, go back to that and look at the mission that you've outlined for your business and the values that carry you forward in your business. And remember those things that are really going right in your business. That's a first step. And I think that'll help reduce the stress levels as well. I find the second step of prioritizing your goals really helpful to me. When I feel overwhelmed, I start making lists. I have several on my desk here, and just making lists, ranking your tasks, prioritize. Once you get a list of tasks made, break it down into little tasks, and then prioritize those tasks and move forward. If you have written planning documents for your business, now is a great time to get back and review those planning documents and update them, because they were based on a set of assumptions that may no longer exist or may change at this point. So a really good time to revisit those planning documents. And if you haven't done that yet, make sure, and as you write down an even task list, use those to prioritize goals for your business in the future as you move forward into the future. Sometimes when I just can't organize myself, these lists help kind of purge my brain, and writing down lists, thoughts, and goals will really help keep you calm and keep you focused. You know, it's really important. I've been home I'm coming to you from my basement here in Nez Perce, and I've been working at home now for, I don't know, 5 weeks, 5.5 weeks. And my wife and I joke that we've never spent so much time together. We've been married almost 45 years, and we've never spent so much time together. So it's a different situation, our work situation. I know that here in Nez Perce, things are running fairly normalized, but still things are different. And so make sure, and with these new schedules that we have, take breaks for yourself. You know, just go out and take a walk, take a coffee break, stay in touch with people. It's very important to stay in touch with your family, friends. It's difficult since we can't see them. We have 3 children in Moscow. We haven't seen them for 5 weeks. It's not that we don't want to go up there. They won't let us come up there. They want us to stay safe. So take care of yourself. There's a few steps you can do to take care of yourself. These are a little bit outside of the economic realm, but certainly just time for yourself, getting, you know, these are emotional times. I found myself getting surprised by upswells of emotion, and recognize emotions and validate them and realize they're important. If you can get some regular exercise, that's a great particularly if I find myself when I'm working at home, I'm having more desk time than when I worked in my office. So a little exercise, adequate sleep, just take care of yourself. This is really important because our businesses are important, but our health and our our mental condition and such as we go forward is key to the success of our businesses. They won't succeed without us. So um, these steps are important. Okay, now we're going to move to cash. Cash is king. I put it in parentheses because cash could be queen. Cash could be the president. I don't know, but cash is the important thing. And here's a quote. Sometimes I like to use quotes because I can really focus what we're going to talk about through that. And this is a quote from academic in University of Buffalo. Every business is a startup in times like these. So you should focus on cash flow, not profits. That's what a startup focuses on cash flow, not profits. The decisions you make today will have enormous ramifications for the future of your business. And these decisions need to be made, can't be put off. And so that it's important we're going to work on building ourselves a framework for making these better decisions today. I started to get interested in this whole topic a couple months ago. My son is a business owner in Moscow, and I asked him, when this was apparent that things were going to be big effect on local businesses, I asked him about his local business, which is a local food system type of business. And I said, so, how are you going to be cash wise for the future? And he's like, well, one month of basically no sales, he'll be fine. 2 months of no sales gets a little tough. 3 months of no sales, and that's over. It's over. So, and this is not unusual. Many businesses operate with about a month to 2 month cash reserve. So cash is king right now. Cash is where we're going to make our decisions. Cash is going to guide our businesses in this time. So on the cash flow management, I'd like to discuss a couple of on the cost side, on the revenue side, and then on the asset side on cash management. Some things we can do. Cash is really the key to profitability in good times. And, good times were just a couple months ago. I mean, things were going really great. And many of you probably had plans for a great year, a profitable year with expansion, maybe some new products, new crops. But all of a sudden, we're in hard times. And now cash flow management is the key to survivability, not so much profitability as well in the longer term. But now we're focused on, in many of our businesses, on survivability. And cash is the key to that. The things we're going to talk about, expenses and income, and also asset management, and then knowing our numbers, which was our other point, they're really keys to small business success, whether your business is farm or whatever in the local food system. So let's talk about a little bit about these items that I have listed today. Controlling costs is an overall, whenever we're in a cash flow pinch, we want to look for ways to control costs. And one of the best tools to keep track of that is your cash flow budget. If you haven't constructed a cash flow budget, most businesses have a cash flow budget. It's probably the most basic financial statement used by businesses, particularly either beginning businesses or businesses that have been around a long time. Cash flow budget should be in place for you right now, but you need to revisit that cash flow budget because assumptions have changed, and you need to update that cash flow budget. It's a critical time to put that in place. And while you do that, you can think about some of the categories in your cash flow budget and how they might be reduced costs and control costs. So some of the ideas is renegotiating rents. If you're farming with a cash rent basis, or your facility rents, equipment rents, and such, you can contact those owners of assets and just try to renegotiate on the short term those rent amounts. Also, look at fixed expenses like insurance. Perhaps you can go to your insurance, deal with your insurance people, and look at higher deductibles temporarily to lower some of those expenses. Look at all your fixed expenses, utilities and insurance and interest, and look for places where we can negotiate reductions in those expenses. And we'll talk about briefly some of the government programs that might help you do that towards the end of the talk here. If you had a rosy capital spending plan, it's probably time to ditch that. Either reduce or eliminate capital spending plan and focus any capital spending on things that are very short term. If your chiller motor is in your cooler is ready to go, then it's time to replace it. You can't lose inventory due to a loss in a deal like that. But if you're just looking at an expansion that could be put off, it's time to change that. I put minimizing staff expenses here because it's time to take a really close look. If you have employees, how maintaining those employees, is important for some of the current government programs. And I'm not a prophet or not trying to be, but this problem that we're having is more of a liquidity problem. In other words, a cash problem than a solvency problem. I started farming in the 80s, and that was a very difficult time to start farming. It's okay to start in about 80, but through the mid 80s, it got way difficult. And it was a solvency problem that was facing agriculture at that time. And when you look at solvency problems, they're a long time to get. This problem we're in right now with more of a liquidity cash problem, it depending on how this all goes, once things more normalize, it will turn around relatively quickly as far as the cash portion of our businesses. It may look a lot different, but it has the potential to turn around a lot more rapidly than a solvency problem. So it's important, if we look at staffing and employees, that if we're looking forward to the future and turning around, that we keep key employees, because rehiring is a difficult expense. So that needs a balance with minimizing staff expenses. Another idea would be trade or barter for supplies. And I know especially in the small farm and local food system, there's considerable amount of this done either for supplies or for labor. But trade or barter some of your product for inputs into your business can reduce your cash costs. Inventory is a big thing. If you maintain inventory, if you can reduce that inventory and not replace it, you're going to cut that replacement cost of inventory significantly. And one way you can do this is, if your inventory is not moving as fast as normal, then just cut that inventory. But also, you could reduce inventory and shorten the time that inventory turns. And you can do this. We'll talk about that on the revenue side, looking at some ways to increase revenues. And one way to increase revenues is to reduce that inventory turn time. It all helps cut your inventory costs, because if you can reduce your inventory amount and then turn it around faster, you can basically keep the same productivity, but with a lower amount of inventory. It's a good time, maybe as far as cutting costs, to take a close look at your customer base. Sometimes all of our businesses have customers that, uh, it's just difficult. They're time consuming. They don't maybe pay on time, or pay partial. So it may be time to reduce those customers and focus on customers that help you keep your costs and income in control. And then don't worry. I mean, it's time sometimes to ask for help. So employees across the nation are taking furloughs and pay cuts, and to increase their purchases or time their purchases to help out vendors, even family. I remember a book about a farmer, and he said he always hated it when he was having tough times. His family would show up because he knew he just couldn't resist asking for help. But it's okay. If they believe in your business, they may be willing to help or able to help. I'll say let's turn our attention to the cost side of things, or excuse me, the revenue side of things. And on the other hand of controlling or cutting costs is getting and keeping the cash flowing. It's very difficult right now with depending on what source of cash you have coming into your business. If your business is more seasoned, that perhaps you've not been pinched by this yet, but many food system businesses have been restricted access to customers. People just aren't out there buying. I know, like I mentioned, Moscow Food Co-op. In the past, I go up there almost weekly and buy my groceries, and I haven't been up there for 5 weeks to get groceries. So it's a good example that people are just businesses are having a hard time keeping the cash flowing. There are some ways we can look at increasing revenue. One way is suggested by one of the authors I read in preparing for this, was to adapt and pivot. Maybe you are able to adapt your production to a new product, a new method of marketing, and pivot, and then increase revenue sources that way. I've seen this a lot in the food sector with, curbside delivery, contact-free delivery. People have really been resourceful at continuing revenue sources or looking for new revenue sources. Some companies have even taken I read about one brewery who they weren't selling beer, so they adapted their production to make like a bacterial cleanser. I'm not getting the right word, but what all the stores are out of, they figured out how to make it and enjoyed it and turned up a new revenue source. If your products aren't moving, maybe you need to look at adjusting that marketing plan. And a lot of companies have looked at delivery. Colette and company have, and her colleagues have put on several webinars dealing with farmers markets and such, and adjustments that we might be making in farmers markets in order that we still can market to the public, but under new situation with social distancing and less contact. So we look at your particular plant or your particular product and think what kind of marketing changes you'll have to make. I've even thought about this with our farm. We primarily just raise hay, and one of my activities I love doing is delivering hay, getting to meet new people, new places to deliver and such. And that might have to change. Some people might not be comfortable with that. They may prefer to pay me online, tell me where to deliver it, and that's that. So I might have to make some adjustments there. Pricing is another way to manage. There's not that many real more businesses have failed for underpricing than overpricing. So really look at your pricing, and you know, it might be a good time to consider pricing like categories. So some of your customers might be willing to pay a certain price for a certain product. You might be able to make an adjustment in that product and get another tier of customers available at another price level. So look at pricing. Then turnaround, as far as I mentioned customers earlier, turnaround for your being paid really can increase your cash flow at this time. So quick turnaround on payments. You know, if you've resisted electronic payments, look at electronic payment systems, because they tend to turn that cash around quicker. Any way you can prepay, get prepays, and turn that cash around quicker can help out with that situation as far as increasing your cash flow. Diversification is another way to increase some revenue, and you might look, if your products aren't selling. I've read a number of stories about farmers who've had to basically plow up or destroy crops that weren't selling and look for new products, new crops that they could raise to meet current market demands. So look for new products, new services that you might be able to do. Ways to adapt your current technology that you're using or current product production to new products. Like disinfectants, I was trying to come up with that word that a brewery got into, making new disinfectants. Maybe it's time to look for a whole new product line or service. Maybe with a farm, you kind of value your privacy and have not had farm sales. Maybe it's time for direct sales from the farm. Other ways to look at that. Okay, another way to move income, to increase income, and especially turnaround, is to offer discounts, vouchers. Pre-sales are great. So sign people up for pre-sales and get the income on the front end of the season if you're in a seasonal situation. That's a great way to increase some cash flow. Look at some short-term financing options to bring some cash into your business, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the webinar today. Finally, reduce accounts receivable. That kind of goes along with that. Talk about customers, so try and collect those accounts receivable, and then maybe avoid the customers that have been creating those accounts receivable for you. On managing liabilities in such a way that could increase your cash flow. If you have loans on machinery, so mid to long-term loans, midterm loans in particular, look at going in and renegotiate those loan terms into a longer term. You might have to put up collateral, a longer term type of collateral like real estate or such, but extend the loan terms and lower your payments that way. Or even perhaps get a suspension on payments on the loan terms. Another thing to look at is if you carry an operating line and that operating debt is building and looking to carry over, renegotiate that operating line, which is usually some type of annual operating credit, to a longer term loan, and that might have to be matched up with some assets that you need to pledge for collateral. Look at paying interest only to free up those full-term payments and free up at least the partial part of the payment that's not interest. Um, uh, this may sound a little not doesn't make sense, but increase collateral on your loans, or use marketing guarantees and contracts. This is working with your lender, because lenders they will get skittish in this situation. Lender behavior in financial downturns and crises has been studied, and lenders, especially with small businesses, they tend to big lenders tend to walk away from small businesses. So lenders that maybe we're looking for business 300 miles away will now only look for business real close by their offices, their local offices. So you need to work with your lender to keep that confidence in your business, and these are some ways to do that. Reduce debt. You could use sale of assets, or perhaps if you had unexpected revenue coming from outside your business, might be an inheritance or family gifts or such, use that to reduce debt and reduce cash flow towards debt that way. Refinance any cash investments that you have. Take a close look at those. Those could be the ones that could be liquidated into cash into the business without penalty. You might need to consider that. And if you have unused capital assets or capital assets that could be sold, that might be another way to move some cash into your business through managing these liabilities. Before I move on, I want to bring up a kind of a checklist. I didn't make a separate slide on this, but when cash is tight, this comes from a resource that I'll highlight at the end of the talk here today. But when cash is tight, and many of us are in a situation when cash is tight for our businesses due to either mostly due to reduced revenues. This is a suggestion, comes from Visa, Score, SBDA in New York. It's a list of how to negotiate smart payment terms and who should I pay first when cash is tight. These people the list starts out with pay the government first. They can shut you down if you don't pay. So they can also go into your personal bank account. There is some leniency that the government has put into the tax system now. So make sure you're current with the adjusted dates for tax submission and tax payments, but keep that in mind. And this has to do with not only income tax, but local property taxes and business taxes. Next is consider some short-term credit card financing. That could keep your, if you get hung up on your accounts payable, credit card could give you some bridge financing that are they're higher interest rate, but they can provide you some quick financing. Whatever bills you need to pay to keep your doors open, your business operation would be next. So bills that, if rent is an issue, keeping your rent paid, bills that keep the inventory, keep the lights on, those are the bills you need to pay next. Finally, next, pay some of your smaller bills, and always talk to your suppliers, your vendors, and make sure that if you're going to be late on because of your tight cash situation, that you've negotiated with them and made clear what was going to be coming up. Okay, next we're going to change to our other point of knowing your numbers. I don't know about you, but this time frame has changed the way I get through every day. my whole structure of time has changed a little bit. Maybe it's freed up some time. Maybe it's some time that you have to really look at your numbers, know your numbers. And what's important about this is that we're going to come out of this, and things are going to look different. There will be some opportunity as we come out of this COVID situation. And the business that is up to date on their numbers and their financial statements will be much more prepared to move forward into the future. So now's the time to get these things done. And you know, some people are more they enjoy accounting and bookkeeping more than other people, but now's the time to get involved in your accounting and bookkeeping. I'd like to make the case for that today. You know, if there's like several different levels of really being involved in your accounting and bookkeeping. Some people just want to produce. They don't want to deal with the numbers. They don't really want to deal with the analysis of the business. Sure, you can hire someone to do that. But if you don't enjoy it, it's time to hire somebody to do it, because it will be important going forward. So, you know, hire a bookkeeper. If you're looking at bookkeeping, there's a difference. You know, bookkeeping is based keeping transaction that the business is accounted for. So the bookkeeping side of things, if you then an accountant to take those bookkeeping numbers and transfer them into financial statements to tell you about the condition of your business and looking at your business going forward. You know, if you want to handle some of it, but you just don't feel up to all of it, then maybe you can do without the bookkeeper and do that part yourself. Usually you can get a program like QuickBooks is one of the most common programs out there, and use that for bookkeeping, and then talk to your accountant. Make sure that your bookkeeping system matches up with what your accountant can work with, and then turn that over to your accountant to come up with your financial statements that will lay out the story of your business. And then finally, you know, if you really enjoy this side of things, and there are a lot of people really enjoy this side of things, you can, and I encourage you to learn more about the accounting side of your business, even if you don't enjoy it necessarily, because these will tell the story of your business going forward. So the things we need to pay attention to: the balance sheet. Bring that balance sheet up to date, because the balance sheet is a picture of your business on a specific date. Well, that picture of your business on January 1st might be considerably different than the business picture on today. So bring that balance sheet up to date. Income statements are profit and loss statements. These statements are really important. While we're focusing on cash flow, we have to keep profitability in mind over the long term. And cash flow statements can be very misleading about profitability. You can look profitable in a cash situation, but actually not be profitable in the long-term actual profitability. So an income statement will do that for you. And Schedule F is really one of those, the most basic income statements in the United States, but we need to use an income statement, an accrually adjusted income statement, to look at profitability. If you don't have one, maybe now's the time to work on that. And I'll suggest some resources as well for that. Cash flow statements, we talked some about those already, but we should be looking at cash flow projections, updated cash flow projections based on the new marketing realities for your business. And you need to update those cash flow statements now, and then make sure and check back every month to make sure your projections are reasonable, and how you're doing on your cash cash flow throughout your business. And then the final thing that we might want to look at updating is break even. And now, oh, a little typo there. Colette did catch one of my typos and I missed that one, but break even analysis. So break even analysis will provide you some pricing information in order to cover your fixed costs. So your fixed costs of depreciation, interest, insurance, taxes, and basic utilities and such that are fixed costs. Break-even analysis give you a way to analyze your cost structure and making sure you're covering those fixed costs or what that price point is, and that will help you a lot in the pricing setup that we talked about a little bit earlier. I think that now is really the time to consider putting some extra time into these financial statements. Sunny days are coming and they're harder and harder to stay inside and work on this. So taking action now is really important. Both these topics of knowing your numbers and cash management, I wanted to mention that in this time of crisis, a lot of times, especially when a business goes, there's a lot of pressure on the business on the income side, costs are piling up. It's almost like a deer caught in a headlight. You get frozen. You feel like you can't do anything. And that's the time when it's important just to shake your head and say, okay, I've got to move. I've got to do something and take some action. And this would be one way where you could take some action, get a good picture of your business. You're much more prepared going forward, knowing where your business is actually at. And then also prepared for dealing with lenders, which I'm going to talk about next a little bit. This is kind of an action plan for a step you might take. So you could ask every month, sit down, first of the month, ask yourself this: are my accounts receivable late? How many are the number of accounts receivable late increasing? And if they are, what am I going to do about it? It's going to is my inventory turning too slow? Have I been successful in increasing the turns on my inventory? Questions are a powerful way to get yourself out of the reactive mode and into the active mode. Are you controlling your expenses? So look at those costs every month. Is your business undercapitalized? In other words, do you really have enough? If your business is relatively new, you may not have had enough capitalization startup money to really carry your business through a time like this. So you might look at you might need to look at ways to increase some capital into the business. Keep track of your budget targets, and are you really keeping up with those? So your budget categories and your cash flow budget, review those monthly and making sure you're on track and that they're realistic. Payroll expenses, same thing. Accounts payable, so keep track of timing on accounts payable, and I've made several suggestions about negotiations on various accounts payable, and you can do that even with short-term accounts payable. Maybe negotiate a payment plan or like that. Are you then, I guess, putting together the cash flow with your numbers, are you prepared to bounce back? Because if this is a liquidity crisis, and certainly one that we've never experienced in our lifetime, but if it is a liquidity crisis, we could be looking at, a fairly short bounce back time. Again, I don't want to be a prophet or anything, but liquidity crises do bounce back quicker than solvency crisis. And at this time, we're not in a solvency crisis as a liquidity crisis, I'd argue. So be prepared to bounce back. And this is the way you get prepared, is managing your cash and knowing your numbers of your business. kind of basic stuff, but really critical to business survival right now. Another, I don't know Mr. Ulbrich, but I just read an article of his and I thought it had some powerful things to say. The first one was about treating all businesses as startups right now. Now, this is his quote, "There's a voice of confidence that says you can do this. That can be a powerful force and help drive you forward through the dark valleys that every entrepreneur experiences along their journey." And certainly our journey has taken some turns that we weren't familiar with, we're not ready for, but these are some steps we can take to be ready. I leaned heavily today on a particular resource, financial management. I thought it was a great resource. It comes from New York State University, SBDA. So New York SBDA. You might have thinking, what good thing can come out of New York after all this? But this is good. Take a look at that. It's a great small business resource and with a lot of ideas in it. Colette has put together really I looked at a number of these types of publications around the nation, and ours is as good as any. COVID-19 resources for Idaho small farms and food systems includes just tons of resources and information for whatever business you're in. That's a great publication. And then I take just a couple minutes to tell you about Inland Biz Strong. Inland Biz Strong there's a link there to sign on to that. And what it is basically, it's a survey. So you fill out a survey to begin with. I did one for our farm, and answer some questions about your business, your employees, your services or products, a little bit about who you are, veteran or what that might qualify you for special programs. And you go through that short survey. It's very easy to complete. And at the end, it gives you a number of, get to my page here, gives you a number of categories of resources that you'd qualify for based on the information that you put in the kind of the decision tree that they went through in the first part of the program. And it's really great. It will list out many of these government programs that are available for small businesses. And many of these programs are new. So, some of them are localized for only specific localities or states. Others are national in nature. And this particular resource gives you all the details of the programs. But the nice thing is it pre-sorts based on your business, your products, your personage, and pre-sorts which ones you're eligible for, so you don't have to waste time with ones that you wouldn't be eligible for. They also list other things, loan resources, group resources, events, trainings, and information. Really good source of information. So with that, I'm done. I don't know, I haven't really checked the chat. I don't really know how to check the chat when I'm doing this online, but I'm pretty much done. I welcome questions or comments, and hope to encourage you through this presentation today.
Thank you, Ken. We haven't had any questions that have come through so far, but if you do have questions, you can go ahead and type those into the chat box or the question and answer box, and we'll give folks a couple seconds to do that. Ken is showing his contact information so that you can follow up with him. Okay, we haven't had any questions came in. That was a pretty thorough cover of cash flow. One of the questions that I had, Ken, is do you have any cash flow templates that we could post with the webinar recording and the handouts from today that people could take a look at and maybe modify for
Sure
their
thing.
particular business?
Sure thing. I'll be happy to send some of those. There's, you know, most universities have those things available, and I'd also suggest that you might look at Idaho Ag Biz as far as farm side of local food system, has information there on budgets and such. But on cash flow, I'll surely provide some templates for you to take a look at and adapt to your business.
Great. I think that's going to be really helpful. See, we don't have any other questions that have come in, so I'm going to go ahead and move forward and talk a little bit about the upcoming webinars and then where you'll be able to find those templates that Ken is going to share. So next week we do have a Monday webinar that's selling your products on Etsy, and that's followed by the 19th and 26th of May of 2 webinars on the fundamentals of produce safety, and then June 2nd, a webinar on taking eggs to market. You can register for any of those webinars from the Cultivating Success website. We really do appreciate your feedback, and we have a short post-webinar evaluation. In that evaluation, you will be able to put any other types of resources that you know that you're looking for your business at this time, and we can help source some of those resources that you need and get them posted to the Cultivating Success website. So this is going to launch in your browser when we close the webinar today, and you'll also get a reminder email tomorrow. If you go to the cultivatingsuccess.org website and you click on Idaho, you'll find a page with all of our recorded webinars. We encourage you to browse through there and look and see if there's other webinars that would be of use to you. We do have a 4-part series that is really looking at key financial documents that you might find helpful. So it goes more in depth on the balance sheet, the income statement, and cash flows. So with that, I want to thank you, Ken, for your presentation today and for the folks that joined us on today's webinar. We really appreciate your being here, and we hope that you stay well during this time.